Hey, everybody. Welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have Run for Something co-founder and president Amanda Litman with us today. We'll chat with Amanda in just a second. But first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So, Amanda Litman is the co-founder and president of Run for Something, a national organization that recruits and supports young, diverse progressives running for local office. She's also the author of the book Run for Something, a real talk guide to fixing the system yourself, and previously hosted two podcasts, Run for Something, the podcast, and Battleground. She's written for Elle, Cosmopolitan, The Nation, Teen Vogue, CNN.com, MTV.com, BuzzFeed, Vanity Fair, O Magazine, Crooked Media, and others. Before launching Run for Something, she was the email director for Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign, digital director for Charlie Crist's 2014 Florida gubernatorial campaign, and an email writer for Barack Obama's 2012 re-election campaign. Her new book, When We're in Charge, The Next Generation's Guide to Leadership, is on sale May 13th and available now for pre-order. Amanda, welcome into the back room.
Thank you for having me.
So you wrote a piece this week for the Daily Beast titled, Democrats' Play Dead Strategy Will Be the Death of the Party. Now, there's a lot to unpack here as you go after Chuck Schumer, James Carville, and the Democrats' seeming inability to fight. And you say it's time to get, quote, a little rude. Tell me about all that.
Thank you for asking about that. So I think about this as a political strategy as much as a moral one. And the moral one is worth naming. Like what Trump and Elon Musk are doing is horrific. It is dangerous. It is hurting people. It is killing people across the world, especially the cuts they've made to foreign aid. Like it is worth fighting on its merits because it sucks. And as a political strategy for Democrats in Congress to think about their mission right now as politicians, it is imperative that they create a little conflict. To zoom out a little bit, one of the most important tasks we have as a Democratic Party is to be the opposition party and accordingly to try and drag down Trump's approval rating. What he's doing is not popular, but most people don't pay attention to the news. We know this. Most people don't really aren't tuned into what's happening in DC. So if they don't know what he's doing, they're just gonna be like, oh, action. Action is good. I love action. Change is probably good. Yay. We need to draw attention to the dangerous stuff that Trump is doing. In order to get that attention, we need to create some conflict. That means we need to be a little rude. We need to protest. We need to create some spectacle. We need to go a little viral, which is, I know, a very annoying direction for some folks. I think this is where Schumer, James Carville, and a number of the older, more establishment leaders in the Democratic Party have it wrong. You cannot just wait for people to realize what Trump is doing and then say, oh, I don't like it, and his approval rating will drop. That is what they're saying. They're saying, when things get bad, people will notice. No, people will not notice. We have to draw attention to it. That is necessary for winning in 2026. And in the short term, it is necessary because it creates space for other people to be in opposition as well, for CEOs, for, I don't know, maybe some Republican elected officials, but certainly more local elected officials to stand up and fight back if they know that Trump is politically toxic.
Yeah, and we'll hang on that word for a second because you write in the piece that we can't wait for Trump to be toxic. We have to make him toxic. And that to me is the inherent problem with the Democrats right now. All we've heard leading up to the election is that if Trump is elected, he's going to be a dictator and democracy will die. So now he's president 2 months. We've seen what he's doing to just completely destroy this democracy. He's on his way. And so the Democrats just don't seem to be unified in either reinforcing that fear or signaling that we got time and things will settle. What is Chuck Schumer waiting to see before he gets rude, before he fights?
Schumer did this interview with Chris Hayes a couple days after the vote in which he straight up said, when Trump refuses to listen to the Supreme Court, then we'll be in a crisis. It's like, my dude, we're in a crisis. And actually, I thought that was really clarifying of, he doesn't think the house is on fire yet.
Right.
Thinks maybe we've left some candles burning, but the house has not caught fire. It is absolutely caught fire. And I think that is like that misunderstanding of the read of this moment, of the depth of this crisis, is part of the problem. He has also said, there's a recent book excerpt that just came out, that, once Trump is gone, the Republican Party's fever will break. They'll go back to the same old Republican Party. And it's like, my dude, it has not been the same old Republican Party for 15 years, at least. Like, what world are you living in? It is someone who is so divorced from the reality of who our opponents are. I understand the impulse to want to be collegial, to want to err on the side of decorum. This is not the time for decorum or gentility. This is the time for, if you believe that we are in a crisis, to fucking act like it.
Schumer was on the Daily podcast last week, and he was pushed pretty hard on all this. And then at one point he also said, we got to hand it to Hakeem Jeffries. He did a great job. He kept the House together. He played by the rules. And I'm like, who says we got to play by the rules right now? Like, if there's ever a moment in history to not play by the rules, this is it. And that's why I think a lot of people are calling for him to not just step aside as minority leader, but to be primary. He's a good man. He's a decent man. It's just, he's a wrong man for this moment.
And I think he would have been a great majority leader. Would have been a great majority leader. But the skills you need to lead a majority, to lead a party in governing, are not the same as what you need to lead a party in opposition. And I think that's the distinction we're at right now.
Yeah, well, just think about what would Mitch have done, right? Mitch McConnell, we saw him when he was leader of the majority. We saw him when he was minority leader, and it didn't really matter. It never mattered with Mitch. He always somehow managed to keep his caucus together and get what he wanted.
No, I think a lot about how the first days of Obama's term, Mitch McConnell's number one goal, he said, was to make Obama a one-term president. Now, he failed. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But the idea that is your political goal. And at the time, it was so scorned. It was what a shameless admission of you're not allying yourself with the American people. You're allying yourself with your political party. You're putting partisanship over the country. It's you know what? At this moment, that's what we got to do. That's what we have to do.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you, like most people, the red flag went up several weeks ago when we saw him in that protest going, fight, fight, fight. I was like, oh my God, we are so fucked. And then it just kind of got worse from there.
Well, this was always sort of the problem with President Biden as well. If you think this is a crisis, give me the optics that show you mean it. Show me you mean it. We're not sending our best.
After Schumer's vote, Trump praised him in a tweet. So when Trump praises you for something, that's a sign you done fucked up.
Yeah. I hear the criticism. I was watching an interview that James Carville, who wrote an op-ed in the New York Times, about, roll over, play dead, hang out and wait for things to get bad. I saw an interview he did with Molly Jong-Fast, in which he says, people keep saying, do something, do something. What are they supposed to do? And it's get caught trying.
Right.
Caught trying. Yes, there's not a ton of legislative power here, but you have hordes of people, of normal Americans, taking time out of their day to show up at these town halls to scream at these members of Congress because mad and furious and scared. You have people putting their safety on the line to show up at these protests, to stand up for their communities. You, an elected official, can't do a little bit more. You can't at the very least validate that rage. If an elected official doesn't show us that rage is important and legitimate, it makes us feel like we're being gaslit. Calm your pretty little head down. It's nothing to worry about. It's no, there's absolutely something to worry about. They're partnering with the DC police to take over independent agencies across DC. What are we doing here?
Well, in fairness, they did show up to the State of the Union in pink outfits and little auction paddles. I
did like the pink visually. It was a dumb protest, though. I think that's the point. It's dumb, and that's not getting caught trying. That's the half-hearted attempt.
Yeah. Well, just think about this. Think about after they accosted Representative Al Green and took him out. Yep. The next Democrat got up and did the exact same thing. And then after they carted him out, the next Democrat did it. And this would go on for as long as how many Democrats are there. And Trump probably wouldn't have been able to speak until 2 a.m. And the headlines the next day would be something along the lines of Democrats, we are not going to sit there and let a dictator wannabe talk about how he's going to dismantle the democracy and take away your Social Security and Medicare and Department of Education, et cetera. Not on our watch.
Yeah. I mean, it would have had us talking about what they were protesting as opposed to talking about, what Trump was saying. It would have changed
Yes.
of discussion. It would have been a spectacle. It would have gotten attention. And right now, the most important thing we can do is get attention on the bad stuff he's doing.
Well, you kind of close out your piece towards the end. You say, quote, so to all the Democrats who are taking the advice of Schumer, Carville, do so at your own peril. The choice between evolving or becoming irrelevant has never been clearer. I mean, amen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have heard already from so many, especially younger folks who are ready to primary Democratic incumbents across the House. Run for Something, the organization I run, has helped. At our biggest candidate recruitment day since inauguration was the day after Schumer announced this vote, was last Friday.
Yeah, and you've got, what, 32,000 people, I think I saw, that have signed up to run for office?
I think as of this morning, we're a few hundred shy of 33,000. It is hundreds a day. And really put that in context, the first 2 years of Run for Something, 2017 and 2018, we had 30,000 people sign up. We're about to exceed that in just the last 4 or 5 months.
Tell us about the organization and its mission, and along the lines of what we're talking about, some of its major accomplishments.
So Run for Something was born of the ashes of the 2016 election. I worked for Hillary for 2 years. About a week after Election Day, I started hearing from friends I'd gone to high school and college with. Hey, Amanda, I'm a public school teacher here in Chicago. I'm thinking about running for office. You're the only person I know that works in politics. What do I do? And at the time, if you were young, if you were newly excited about politics and you wanted to do more than vote and more than volunteer, there was nowhere you could go that would help you. So I reached out to a whole bunch of people with an idea. Let's solve this problem. One of those people became my co-founder, this guy named Rosenberg. We wrote a plan, we built a website, and then we launched Run for Something on Trump's first inauguration day. We wanted to recruit and support young, diverse leaders to run for local office all across the country. We thought it would be really small. We'd get 100 people in the first year. We had 1,000 people in the first week. And we are at about 194,000 young people who've raised their hands since then to say they want to run. We've helped elect more than 1,500, or just about 1,500, in 49 states plus DC, all millennials and Gen Z, mostly women, mostly people of color.
And is this like up and down ballot, like right down to the school board level kind of stuff?
So it is everything state house, state senate, and below. So city council, school board, library board, American River Flood Control District trustees, mosquito abatement district, coroner races. We don't do Congress, we don't do statewide offices, so we never have to sort of prioritize those like big ticket things over the small stuff. We are really here to build and widen the funnel to get as many people running and thinking about running as we possibly can in as many places as possible, knowing that some of them are going to win, they're going to do good stuff while they govern. Some of those folks are going to go on to run for higher office, which we've already seen. We have 5 people who've come through our pipeline who are now members of Congress, and there will likely be many more after 2026. We have people running for statewide offices this year in Colorado and Michigan and likely elsewhere. We are building the bench of talent for the future. And at this very moment, like they are ready to just like Kool-Aid man themselves through the wall in order to take over.
And that's really so important because that's been the Republican strategy for many years now, is to just, everybody's focused on the White House and the House and the Senate, but we've seen what they've done, election commissioners and secretaries of state and school board commissioners and stuff like that. And so that is really important. If we were casting a movie, who is the ideal candidate?
That's a good question. You know what? It's going to be an unsatisfying answer. The thing that I've loved about this work over the years is that every candidate is so different. Like there's teachers, lawyers, doctors, nurses, artists, scientists, musicians, rodeo stars, people who work in retail, Chipotle burrito rollers, small business owners, veterans, the whole they all have backgrounds. I will say the thing that they all have in common is one, they're really clear on the problem they want to solve, or the thing that they care about, like the push that got them into running for office. They can tell you the story of, I was driving and I kept going over these potholes and my city council didn't listen when I asked them to fix the potholes, and they wouldn't answer my calls, they wouldn't answer my emails, and now I'm going to run for city council myself because if they're not going to answer my emails, I'm going to be the one to answer the emails. and I'm going to make it this isn't a problem. They can really clearly articulate how the office they want to run for solves that problem. And the good ones, the really effective ones, can answer, why should a voter want you to win? Which is different than why you want to win. You want to win because winning is great and losing sucks. Voters will want you to win because you're going to do something specific and tangible for them. The best candidates can answer those questions. Beyond that, totally different kinds of backgrounds, experiences, resumes, length of time living in a community, homeowner versus renter, age, race, class, gender, identity, sexual orientation, all of it, all different kinds. But they've got that core passion and they can tell it. Everything else they can learn.
How far into the campaign do you and the organization stay? Like, is it you enlist and then kind of help set up a campaign, or are you there in some consultative capacity throughout the campaign?
So Run for Something's process works kind of like a marketing funnel in many ways, if you're familiar. So we open the funnel as big as we can at the very top. That's the 193,000 people who've signed up. The next step is to join a conference call. We host these every couple weeks. We answer the same basic questions every first-time candidate has. We talk through our program. You might hear from some of our alumni. It's very inspiring. They're super fun. Check our website for more. After that, you have an opportunity to talk to one of our volunteers, where we learn a little bit more about you. You learn a little bit more about us. Our volunteers are fully trained on the Run for Something library resource, or resource of library of resources. And then you start getting regular emails and text messages from our team. Hey, there's a training coming up near you. Hey, we just put out this new guide on campaign security. Hey, we've got an upcoming event that we're hosting in partnership with this union or this think tank or this organization that might be appropriate for you, depending on who you are, where you live, and what your focus is. Once you've actually filed to get on the ballot, which we have guides and asynchronous materials on how to actually do, you can apply for our PAC's endorsement. We want to see your campaign plan, your budget, your win number. We have a full process that we do, including a background check to make sure you're being honest with us. We have local operatives who do a review to give us more context. And then we endorse. And that's about the 3,000-ish people we've endorsed over the 8 years of the organization. That's where our staff will really dig in with you. We'll get on the campaign calls your team is hosting. We'll work with you or your staff. We will help you get access to the voter file. We have discounts to all kinds of tools that you might need. We have relationships with partners and volunteers across the country. Whatever you need as the candidate, we will help you find. We'll be there for you through and beyond Election Day. So endorsed candidates who we track through wins and losses. And then they stick with us afterwards as alumni, whether they act as mentors to up-and-coming folks, or we connect them with people who do governance support, or to people thinking, who should we get to run for this congressional seat? It is a real soup to nuts experience.
So we're now like 5 months out from what is obviously now a very consequential election. Democrats were critiqued over being everything from tone deaf to just like being coastal elites and focusing on wedge issues and culture war issues. What do you think is the winning message next time?
I think the winning message for the next campaign is going to be the one that is the most authentic to the candidate, which is, again, not a satisfying answer. But I think we can tell, and this is the thing, especially in this particular moment, when candidates are full of shit. You can tell when a candidate only buy what they're selling if they haven't drank their own Kool-Aid because it's not from them. So if a candidate is running because they are genuinely alarmed about the state of democracy and it's the thing keeping them up at night, then that's going to be a compelling message coming from them. If the candidate is really in it for cost of housing, which for what it's worth, I think is going to be one of the biggest issues coming up in the next couple of years as Trump proceeds to crash the housing market, and especially young people have a very different experience with the housing market right now. All of that is to say, if that's the thing that you're really getting in on the election for, make that your message. The most important thing, more so than anything else, is to be really clear about why a voter, as I said before, why a voter should want you to win. Like, what are you going to do for them? Yeah, you want to fight for democracy? Great. Why should a voter give a shit about that? How is having a better, more reflective, more responsive democracy going to make their life meaningfully better? You can make a case for that, but you got to spell it out. And I think that is often where we've gotten sort of like lost in the sauce a little bit in years past. We think like espouse the policy without connecting it back to people. And the best candidates are the ones who can really do that concretely and personally.
Yeah, I mean, just look at AOC. Like, there are a lot of people who don't agree with everything she stands for, but she's an effective communicator and she is really authentic. And I think that's what resonates with people.
Voters know that they're not going to agree with a candidate on every issue. They need to know that on the stuff they don't agree with them or that they don't know, they can trust them. And that's where that authenticity comes from.
Well, I think one of the reasons why organizations like yours are so critical, especially now, is because we're entering a time where I think the focus isn't so much to me about the message as it is about who's listening. So you mentioned the town halls before. We are seeing that right now. The ground is so fertile for the right message now. Now you have people who are willing to listen, right? And they're angry and they're fired up. So to me, it's like Democrats have this amazing opportunity just 2 months after this guy stepped into the Oval Office again. His poll numbers are tanking. And so I hope they are ready and able to meet this moment because midterms are 16 months away now. And that's not a very long time.
Message, obviously important. Receptive to message, important. Messenger is a thing we often underrate. We do these poll tests, we do these focus groups and try and land on like the exact right sequence of words, but that is not how people consume information. Like the way that, taking back to like 2020 to 2024, if Joe Biden said, I want to forgive your student loans versus AOC said, I want to forgive your student loans, the reception to that, the way you would hear that, the way you would interpret that, the way you would trust whether they meant it and whether they actually your student loans or someone else's student loans, all of that would be based on who was doing the communicating and the brand they have and the way that whether or not you trust them. And I think that is why candidate recruitment, at least what we do, is so important and is like often the understated sort of ingredient into all of this. Like great ads for shitty candidates can't move the needle. Campaign tactics for shitty candidates can't move the needle. It's like if you're going to make pasta with like the best handmade Italian, fresh out of grandma's oven or stove pasta versus like the crap I buy at the corner store that's been sitting there for 6 months on the shelf. One is going to taste better than the other, even if they are fundamentally the same thing. We got to make sure we're working with better ingredients. And I think about this a lot in particular when it comes to the sort of discourse at the moment about like media environments and information ecosystems and showing up in non-political spaces. There are maybe generously 10, maybe national Democrats who could show up in a non-political space and have a normal conversation. That would be interesting and engaging.
Well, we're seeing Bernie do that with his fighting oligarch tour and going into red cities, red districts, talking to Republican voters because he has that authenticity. And I think a good amount of Trump voters are starting to realize that elections have consequences and they're experiencing buyer's remorse.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think in particular, especially with younger voters, I know this is like the hot topic right now of how Democrats are losing Gen Z. These are not like tried and true Republicans. They were either anti-Biden voters or Trump voters. It doesn't mean that they're Republican Party voters. And I think, in fact, the way that you know that is in a lot of these places where Trump won, think about a place like Michigan or Wisconsin, Democrats vote one down ballot.
Sure.
2026 is going to be a place going to be an election, rather, where Trump's not on the ticket. He's going to try and make it about himself, but he's not on the ticket. That's not who people are voting for. It's going to be a different electorate. And we know this. A lot of Republicans cannot get away with the same bullshit that he can. He may have the brand to resist a lot of the attacks. Most of them do not. We saw this in the Republican primary in 2024. Like DeSantis and Nikki Haley and others tried it, and it doesn't stick on them. And I think the dangerous thing as we look ahead is that it kind of sticks on J.D. Vance. Not as well. I find him loathsome and punchable and like detestable. But he has the ability, using social media, to supercharge building his brand the way that Trump could do over 35 years of being on television.
Do you think J.D. Vance has that same ability as Trump? I mean, Trump is a billionaire. He lives in a mansion in the sky. He travels on limousines and private jets, but somehow has convinced these people he's like them. I don't think J.D. Vance has that same special sauce.
No, I don't think so either, but I think J.D. Vance is really trying. And if we don't make an effort over the next couple of years, the other political task we have besides dragging down Trump's approval rating is making sure that J.D. Vance's approval rating similarly plummets. Now, I also don't think J.D. Vance will have an easy walk into the 2028 nomination. that's a separate sort of like a whole different conversation. But I think all of that is to say, we got to make sure that the messenger, that the way that they're communicating, the way that they're showing up, and that the places we are engaging going into 2026 really meet the moment, and do not assume that just because Trump won the popular vote in 2024, that Republicans will win the popular vote next time around.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about your book. You got a new book coming out May 13th. It's available for pre-sale. It's called When We're in Charge, The Next Generation's Guide to Leadership. So you spoke about Gen Z a minute ago. This is a very important subject of your book, of Run for Something, about your overall mission. Tell us about the message of the book and what you would like readers to take away from it.
Yeah, so When We're in Charge, I'm so excited about, is a first of its kind leadership manual for millennials and Gen Z taking power. I have run for something now for 8 years, and we have run it very differently than most other kinds of organizations. And I have been, I think, leading very differently and experiencing some challenges and learned some mistakes through that. I also talked to more than 130 leaders across every kind of background: politics, faith, business, tech, teachers, daycare directors, media executives. I talked to Evan Spiegel at Snapchat. I talked to Varsha Sharma, the editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue. I, of course, talked to a couple members of Congress. And the things that I heard echo across those conversations were things like, I keep being told to be authentic and be myself, but then I'm in charge of a team of people and I'm responsible for their paychecks. How the fuck do I do that? Or like, my employees follow me on Instagram. That really actually changes how I think about posting and showing up online. Things like remote work and work-life balance and ambition and career paths that we as millennials and Gen Z are experiencing very differently, and that our teams are experiencing very differently than the folks who came before us. And there isn't a playbook for that. So what I've written is hopefully I think, a very concrete, specific guide on how we can sort of decide what it means to, I call it breaking the cycle of bad boomer leadership, and to do it differently in a way that feels more true to us and also is effective and successful and treats people like people, not robots.
We know the statistics for turnout show that roughly 30% of people under 30 show up at the polls. Given that the stakes are so high with regard to gun violence, reproductive rights, climate change, saving democracy, pick your poison, why don't more Gen Z and millennials vote? And more importantly, how can we achieve greater engagement among this critical constituency going forward?
Got to give them candidates they're excited about. They vote for people. They vote on issues. We need to make sure that we are reaching them where they are. That is both, yes, college campus organizing, although if you're on a college campus, you're already a little more likely to vote, but making sure that we are in media spaces and information spaces, that we are on Twitch, on Discords, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Snapchat, where these young people are consuming information. And we have to give them someone they can be excited about. Like, yeah, I don't blame young people for not being super pumped to vote for Joe Biden in 2020 or 2024. No, I don't blame them. Like, it wasn't that thrilling. And we have seen, at least Run for Something candidates have seen, that when they are running, they are able to reach young voters really comfortably because they're one of them. If you're in your like late 20s, a lot of the like mid and younger folks in your neighborhood. You go to the same gym, you're shopping at the same grocery store, you're probably like, hanging out at the same spaces, going to the same bars and clubs, if that's something you do. It is not unusual for you. It doesn't feel weird for you to be in communication with these people because they're your friends, or your friends of friends, or your friends of friends of friends, and they're your volunteers' friends. And I think that is also really helpful here as we think about what we're doing moving forward. Is like, we need candidates who can communicate with young people like they want to be spoken to, without any bullshit, without any facade, and like really speaking to the issues they care about, which, again, I'll come back to this. One of them is housing. It's going to be we got to keep an eye on it.
So in our last minute or so, do you want to give a pitch to somebody out there who might be thinking about running for office?
So if you're listening and you're like, ooh, maybe, one, go to runforwhat.net. You can look up what office you can run for in 2025 or 2026. You can enter your address. You'll see what's on the ballot, how to actually think about that decision, and you'll start getting materials from our team. And I would encourage you, especially if you are a Democrat, 2026 is going to be a good year to run as a Democrat. You could win. And we've seen overperformance in some of the special elections so far, and I think we will continue to see that. You could win. especially if you're running in a place where Democrats haven't competed in a long time or haven't contested. And look at some of these dum-dums in office right now. If you don't do this, if you, dear listener, dear watcher, dear viewer, do not do this, someone stupider than you, who doesn't care as much as you, who isn't going to solve the problems the way you think they need to be solved, is going to do it. And that's going to make you so mad. That's always my way of thinking about this if I should do something. If I saw someone else do it, could I think they were doing it the wrong way? And if the answer to that is yes, then I have to do it because I don't want to be mad that I missed that opportunity. I think for anyone thinking about running in 2025 or 2026, now's the time. It's not too early to get started, and it's only rarely too late. We would love to help you.
Amanda, I love what you're doing. I love what Run for Something is doing. Keep doing it. It's great, important work, and I hope you'll come back and talk with us again.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
All righty. Take care. This episode of The Back Room was edited and produced by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-edited and co-produced by Matty Rosenberg and co-produced by Jen Hammoud. Our theme song was composed by Andrew Hollander, and our logo was designed by Cricket Lengyel. And special thanks to Patricia Wind. Please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, and also follow or subscribe. Until next time, keep your eyes on Washington, Hollywood, and your own backyards, and have a great week.